So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things to do with flowers, which is seed starting. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can start seeds, whether you direct seed them outside or you start them inside. You can start them in plug trays or you can start them in soil blocks. Now, a lot of people haven't heard about soil blocking, but it's a really, really great method for starting seeds that allows a seed to grow in just a tiny little block. They don't take up very much space, and it allows for the roots to prune themselves. So I learned this method from Lisa Mason Ziegler with the Gardener's Workshop, and it has been a game changer for me. You can fit so many seeds in just a small amount of space. So this is a soil blocker, and it holds about 20 blocks, so you just put the seeds down in there and we do this. So I'm going to show you how I start my seeds, and then I'll talk a little bit about what seeds I'm actually starting. So the first thing is you've got to have a method to start your seeds, so your medium. So whether that is peat moss or just soil like Pro Mix. For soil blocking, you can actually make your own mix out of peat moss and compost and other things. There's a recipe on the Gardener's Workshop website. But one thing that I've been using that's working really, really well is Fort V Vermont compost. And so this is already pre-mixed. It's got everything that you need. I've started some seeds in it and it's worked out really, really well. It is a little bit on the pricier side, but I find that with soil blocking, I'm getting a lot out of this bag. Everything that I'm using, I'll link in my Amazon storefront so that if you want to start your own seeds, you can do so with the products that I'm using. But this is really, really great. So I have a container here and I'm going to pour some of this in. Now the trick with this is to add water. And so when you pour your water in there, you're going to mix it up a little bit. Alright. And so you kind of want it to be a consistency where you can put it in your hands and kind of squeeze it out and get some water with it. What I like about this Vermont compost Fort V mix is that there's not a lot of sticks or rocks or gravel in it. So it makes it a pretty nice consistency for soil blocking. So I'm going to take my soil blocker, and you see it's got the 20 holes, and there's a little dibbler in there, so it makes a great place for you to put a seed. And I'm going to place it onto just styrofoam meat trays. This is really, really useful when I just want to start a few seeds. I also use cafeteria trays if I want to start a whole tray of like snapdragons. I started, and I think I fit over 200 snapdragons on a cafeteria tray. So it's really beneficial if you're low on space. So I just take it and I mash it into the soil blocker. You can see over my cat. She thinks that she's got to be involved with everything that we do. So I'm just smashing it in there, and I want to make sure that each block is filled with enough soil, so that way it has a good consistency and it will hold together, because these blocks are going to need to hold together, some for 10 to 12 weeks and some for 4 to 6. So I think I've got it in there about like I like it, and I just kind of scrape it with my hand. It's kind of a dirty job, but all right. So I'm going to take my cafeteria tray and my soil blocker, and what you do is you press on the soil blocker and release, and then all of your blocks come out. So this little tray right here will hold 40 blocks of seeds. And I highly recommend starting the same kind of seed in a tray. You don't want to have two different types of seeds in there, that one takes longer to germinate than another, because once you get it on that heat mat, if one starts taking off before the other, you're going to want to move it off the heat mat and the other may not have germinated. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to fill it up. You see, it doesn't really take that long to do this. And again, there's no right or wrong way to start seeds. This is just one of my preferred methods. There are some seeds that I don't do in soil blocks just because they take a lot longer to start and they have to stay in the tray a lot longer, and I want to make sure that they hold together. So like Lisianthus, I typically do in a plug tray. But again, you're just going to take the soil blocker, put it onto that, press it, let it go, and it makes a nice little block for you to put your seeds on. So I'm going to move all this out of the way. You gotta get off. Thank you. All right, so now that I have my tray ready to go, I need to decide what seeds I'm going to put on my tray. Now, there is also another book that I highly recommend by Lisa Mason Ziegler that's called Cool Flowers. And so you might think it's funny that I'm starting seeds in August, but because we're in zone 7B, it's really easy for us to start our seeds now, get them in the ground before our first frost in October, and then let them overwinter, and they actually bloom earlier in spring. You can also start your seeds in January or February, weeks before our last frost, and have the same results, but this is just an easy method for us. So Cool Flowers, it tells you which seeds you can start in the fall for early spring blooms. Not every seed has to be seeded and started inside. A lot of seeds can be direct seeded. Direct seeding is my preferred method, and I have a lot of things that I will start outside, but there are just some things that don't do great unless you start them inside. So now that I've got my tray, the biggest thing that I do is I label my tray. I want to know what I'm starting, and I want to put a date on it so that I know when I started it and I have an idea of when it should germinate. So what I'm going to start today is something called Clarkia. That's elegant salmon. So I'm going to go ahead and write that on my painter's tape because that's the thing that holds up the best for me. And today's date. And I'm just going to take it and put it on my tray. Nothing fancy going on. Now, you want to hold on to your seed packets because you want to know the information that's on the back. Johnny's is one of the best places to buy seeds. They have a lot of information online, and their seed packets are full of information about when you can plant it, if it's a perennial, if it's an annual, about its growing conditions. So they're a great source for seeds. But what I use, these are tiny seeds, so they come in a little packet like this. But what I use is just a little measuring cup to put my seeds in. That makes it a little bit easier for me to put them onto the soil blocks. All right, so toothpicks are your friend. Toothpicks are going to be what helps you get these seeds onto the soil blocks in a safe way. So what I typically like to do is I wet the end of the toothpick. That way it makes it easy to pull the seed onto the soil block. So this is a little bit hard to see, but I'm just taking my toothpick and putting one seed on each block. And sometimes you get a little bit of static electricity going on and they're a little bit harder, but now it's important to note sometimes seeds need to be covered. They need darkness to germinate, but interestingly enough, some of them do not need to be covered, so they can just be surface sown and left alone to germinate. So make sure that when you're sowing your seeds that you check your seed packet to determine what that variety of seed needs. All right, so now that I'm done with this tray, I'm just going to easily pour my seeds back into my little baggie here. And then I will put them back in the packet. And I will store it in my seed box. I like my seed box just so that I can keep my seeds in a dark place. They're kept cool. The other thing that I do, which is just an extra step for me, but I have a sheet, it's like a Google document, Google Sheets, that has every packet of seeds that I have. It also has their start time on it, the color that the seed is, and the amount. And so I will go into this and I will write the date that I started the seed on. It just gives me another extra thing to know that I did start that type of seed, and when I started it, and also how many I started at that time. So that way I know about how many I should expect. So it's just a way for me to keep up with my seeds. So let me know in the comments section if you have any questions about seed starting, how I start seeds, what type of seeds that I start during this time, and don't forget to like and subscribe.